My name is Kyoko Saito. I'm 30 years old, married, and have one daughter. This time, I'd like to tell you about my battle with my mother-in-law. First, I'll tell you about my family. I live with my husband, Akihiro, who is 4 years older than me, and my 4-year-old daughter, Arisa. I work for a foreign finance company, and my husband works freelance as a journalist. In other words, we're both working. But my husband is really cooperative, and we work together to do the chores and raise our daughter. When we're both busy with work, we call for a babysitter and make sure that neither one of us has to bear more than the other. Every day ends up being pretty hectic, but overall, we were leading a pretty happy and peaceful life. Until... Hello? You'll be coming over for Labor Day, won't you? Yes, I'll be going with my daughter. Really? I'm looking forward to it. But I was wondering, are you still going to continue working? Yes, I plan to. Like I've said many times before, it doesn't look good for the wife to still be working. What will the neighbors think? Why don't you hurry up and resign? It's not that easy at the moment. Why? Akihiro makes enough money to support you. I have a lot of reasons, and nowadays it's not that unusual for both parents to work. Ah, what a shame. Poor Arisa. If she's raised in a house like that, it might have an effect on her future. Children who don't get enough love from their parents become criminals, you know. Oh, really? Well, we have our own way of doing things. This harsh woman is Shinobu, my husband's mother. She just became 60 the other day. My father-in-law has already passed away, so she's living by herself at the moment. I think you can already tell, but our compatibility is the worst. Thinking back, we didn't get off to a good start. When we first got engaged and went to visit her, I could almost hear the ringside bell gonging for the fight to start. So, when are you planning on resigning? The earlier the better. Oh, I plan to continue working after we get married. What? You won't resign once you're married? I really don't understand what young people are thinking. If you're going to marry Akihiro, then I'd prefer that you resign. It's pretty typical of someone her age. Her way of thinking was what you'd call traditional. Once married, women should become housewives and support their husbands and children and stuff. Even after that, whenever I went to visit, I would be forced to help out with the chores and cooking. Great timing! I'd like you to help with the cooking. Sorry, cooking's a bit... I am very bad at cooking. It's so bad I can't even fry an egg without burning it. Usually, I rely on frozen dinners and takeouts. Of course, my husband is the type that doesn't mind, and I had told my mother-in-law that I couldn't cook before I married him. It seems that Shinobu had thought that I would start cooking once we were married and was expecting me to improve. But because my cooking skills didn't get any better, she would always complain and lecture me. You still can't cook? I wonder when you'll finally be able to do your duty as a wife. She must have realized by now that I have no intention of practicing. Unfortunately for me, she calls me into the kitchen just so that she can lecture me about it. I'm starting to think that she's enjoying making me suffer, but I can only ignore her spiteful comments about my slowness. Oh, I'm so sorry I'm not as good as you at cooking. I really do feel sorry for Akihiro and Arisa. Oh, I do too. I'd be lying if I said that it wasn't annoying, but I can understand that it's hard for her generation to accept a type like me. If anything, I would try and calm my irritation by thinking that she must just be jealous that I can continue working like this, even after getting married. Also, just like many other grandmothers, Shinobu is extremely doting of her granddaughter. My daughter really loves her grandma too, so I can't avoid going to visit my mother-in-law's house. And she often comes to visit us too. There would be no problem if she was just spoiling Arisa. But whenever I go to visit, she would make complaints just for the sake of it. About how my cleaning wasn't thorough enough, or that the food I prepared wasn't good enough. There was no end to her comments. She would always keep an eye on my actions and wouldn't overlook any chance to say something. I call it the monster-in-law beam. Look at this! You haven't wiped this table properly! There's still some droplets left! Oh, sorry. Sometimes, when I couldn't take it anymore, I would complain to my husband. However, his reaction would be, "It's so tiring. I can't avoid her monster-in-law beam. She always complains no matter what I do or say."
Was she really complaining that much? She lives by herself, so she must be lonely. She just wants someone to take care of. I hope you can get along with her more.
He clearly doesn't get my point, so his response is always unhelpful. I guess it's a bit difficult to expect him to understand the subtleties of a woman's relationship with her mother-in-law. But as a wife, I would be really happy if you would take my side. Even so, I loved my husband, and I thought he was a good partner and a good father. Until I got that message.
Hey, I have something to tell you. Do you have time right now?
What is it? What happened?
I got a phone call from my room, and she says that her house is leaning a bit.
Huh? So she needs money to fix it?
Nope. She says it's irreparable. My parents' house is too old, so it looks like it's going to fall apart soon.
I remember you saying that it was a pretty old house.
Yeah, it's the same house my grandpa used. Anyway, she says she'll be coming to live with us.
What?
She says it's a pain to find a new house, so she wants to come to ours.
Wait, that's way too sudden!
It looks like she's already sold the property, and I don't think I can change her mind, so you've just got to deal with it.
A few days after hearing this sudden announcement, my mother-in-law really did move in with us. I'm looking forward to living with you. Let's get on, okay? My mother-in-law was in a very good mood. It was the first time I'd seen her so happy in a long time, so it creeped me out a little. Now that I think about it, she had mentioned wanting to live with us before. When Arisa heard that Grandma would be living with us, she was jumping up and down with joy. I decided to bear with it for my daughter's sake. Oh my goodness, I can't believe how dusty this room is! How on earth do you live like this? The monster-in-law beam was already on the move. And when I was getting ready to leave for work early in the morning, she would say, "It's early morning and it's already so noisy. Why don't you resign and just focus on being a housewife?" Up until now, I only had to endure her comments when I went to visit her, but now it was on a daily basis. The stuff I had to deal with up until now was nothing in comparison to the pressure I was experiencing daily. I'm doing my best to deal with it, but I don't think I can last any longer. And then, making comments was no longer enough for my mother-in-law. One day, my husband and I knew we would be late from work, so we called for a babysitter. It was the same babysitter we always called for, so we knew she was reliable and got on well with our daughter. On the day, we asked her to collect Arisa from kindergarten and stay with her until either my husband or I got home from work. But in the evening, I got a call from the babysitter. I answered, wondering what could be wrong. I found out that when she took Arisa home, my mother-in-law had shooed her away. She had tried to explain who she was to Shinobu, but my mother-in-law didn't listen and the babysitter didn't know what to do. I had left a note explaining that a babysitter would be coming, so I wondered what was wrong. Of course, I called my mother-in-law and asked her. "I'm here, so there's no need. You're a failure of a mother for leaving your own child with a complete stranger." And she got angry with me instead. I had thought the same, but considering her back pain, I decided that it might be too tough for her to take care of an active 4-year-old by herself. I may have been at fault for not asking her directly, but that doesn't mean it's okay for her to kick the babysitter out. My mother-in-law's excessive interference didn't stop there. On my daughter's 5th birthday, for the past few birthdays, our family has made a tradition of taking our daughter to eat dinner at an amusement park restaurant, where all the waiters and waitresses are dressed up as characters. My daughter had also been looking forward to her birthday, but when we arrived at the restaurant...
I'm very sorry, but it seems that your reservation was cancelled the day before yesterday.
What? I had no memory of doing such a thing. According to the manager, it had been cancelled over the phone by a woman who sounded like she was much older. Only one person came to mind. I messaged my mother-in-law, who I had told that morning that I had plans. Did you cancel my reservation for the restaurant? Oh, didn't I tell you? No, I was told by the restaurant staff when I arrived. Oh, sorry. It completely slipped my mind. That's just one problem. Why did you even cancel it in the first place? Do you know what day it is today? Of course I know. It's Arisa's birthday. That's why I canceled. I don't understand. Listen to me. It's because it's her birthday that you should work hard and make her something yourself. You're a mother, aren't you? Why would you take her to a restaurant? I can't believe you'd be so lazy on your own daughter's birthday. Are you being serious? Do you really think you're acting out of the goodness of your own heart? Of course. In the end, I bought a cake and took Arisa home. I did my best to prepare her favorites and tried to make up for what happened. but my daughter was absolutely devastated. It was only natural. I wouldn't be exaggerating if I said that it was the one day of the year that my daughter was looking forward to. My daughter was in tears, saying,
"I hate Grandma!"
I couldn't handle it anymore, and went to my husband for advice. Can't you say something to your mom? Her bossiness is pushing the limit. She's done something horrible to Arisa. How can you just sit there and let it happen? But my husband only said,
There's nothing we can do. Her way of thinking is old. It's not like she's a bad person, so just let it slide.
and shrugged it off. I had been thinking this for a while, but it was clear that this silly husband of mine was favoring his mother. It wasn't just because she was his real mother, but probably because he was happy that somebody was taking care of his every need. Ever since she started living with us, she had been in charge of cooking. And making things just the way he liked probably had a big impact too.
Your cooking is the best after all, Mom!
Right? A woman's worth is in her cooking after all. I really hope someone somewhere would take a leaf out of my book. I can't deny that her cooking is delicious, but the flavor is a bit too strong. I don't mind eating it, but I feel that the salt intake is too high for my daughter to eat. But since I can't cook myself, it's a bit hard to say out loud. My mother-in-law is traditional, so even if he's her son, it's ingrained into her to put my husband first. Ever since she came, it seems my husband is getting ahead of himself because she's treating him like that. On the other hand, my daughter, who had been so excited to live with her grandma, recently seems really unhappy. Before living with us, my mother-in-law had been spoiling my daughter rotten. But ever since she moved in, her maternal switch must have been flicked, because she had started to be quite strict towards Arisa. It's not exactly a bad thing, except that the things she taught were, surprise surprise, old school. For example, she would tell Arisa off for starting to eat before her dad, or tell Arisa to prioritize housework over homework. She was forcing ideals onto Arisa, and I couldn't accept that. And so, even my daughter had started to distance herself, or rather, reject her own grandmother. Our family had been split down the middle. However, my mother-in-law couldn't care any less. She had seized control of our home. I thought I might as well buy an apartment for her to live in elsewhere. But my husband was in an I love mommy mode, so he'd most likely shut down the idea. By this time, I hated my mother-in-law so much that even my feelings for my husband, who only sided with her, had started to disappear. One day, I got a message during work.
When do you finish work? I can't wait to see you.
At the usual time. Didn't I tell you yesterday?
Oh yeah, you did. Sorry, I completely forgot.
What's the point in asking me what time I finish?
It's nothing.
Then why did you say I can't wait to see you?
I just thought we should have some time to ourselves, that's all. Right? Like go out to drink or watch a movie or something.
Oh, really? Are you sure that's all?
Of course. What else could there be?
Nothing. It's fine. Tell me when you find out what time you'll be coming home. We've been together for a while, but the last time my husband sent me any messages like this was when we were first dating. I could tell that it wasn't directed towards me, and that it was probably meant for someone else. I asked him about it when he got home. No matter how you look at it, this message is way too suspicious. This wasn't meant for me, but for someone else, wasn't it? I spoke strongly, sure that my husband was cheating on me. In response, my husband said,
No, it was for you! Why would you doubt me like that? I remembered what it was like when we were younger and tried to bring that feeling back.
He was insistent that that was all, and wouldn't confess to an affair. My husband's argument made some sense, and there was no way to prove my accusation. But my intuition was screaming that he was guilty. So we ended up arguing and arguing until... It's already this late, and you're being so noisy! What are you fussing about? My mother-in-law had woken up and came to see what was going on. Once we explained the situation, she said, "That's enough, Kyoko! How dare you accuse your own husband of something like that when he's working so hard?" As expected, she got angry with me instead, but I argued back. "This is our problem as husband and wife. This has nothing to do with you." But she spoke over me and said, "Husband and wife? You don't have the right to complain when you're not even a proper housewife," and lost her temper. As a result, our argument was forcefully put to an end by her anger. I wasn't convinced, so I decided to get hard evidence. I hired a private investigator to follow my husband, and decided to act like nothing had happened until I had some proof. Then, thanks to the investigation, I had plenty of evidence in my hands. I think this is a pretty good picture. Your lover looks very young. Is she in her 20s?
Where did you get this?
You should have been a bit more cautious once you knew that I was suspicious of you. My PI got pictures of you just days after that fight we had. I'm more appalled than I am angry.
It's just a misunderstanding.
I haven't said anything yet. And what could I possibly misunderstand from this picture? Do you really think you can talk this all away?
Please, let me explain.
Go ahead, make your excuses. But whether I listen to them or not is a different matter. Anyway, make sure you come home quickly.
Okay, I will.
And then, that night, if you really think you can explain, then go ahead. I showed him the pictures and interrogated him. I knew that there would be war, so I got a friend to take care of Arisa. My mother-in-law was also in the room, but it seemed she didn't know what to say. This time, I had evidence, so there was no way for her to argue back to me. But my husband was making his excuses.
This was just an interview. She said that she didn't want to be seen interviewed on the street and suggested we go into the hotel.
I shot down that excuse in no time. If that's true, then why did you choose a love hotel? And what? Do you link arms with all of your interviewees? Huh? When my mother-in-law heard this, she finally spoke. "That's enough!" And stood up. "Don't get so worked up just because he's having an affair. That's just how men are. You should be more forgiving." And used an outdated phrase to argue back to me. How men are? He's not worth half a man. Stop forcing your moldy old ideals onto me every single time. I had no intention of backing down this time. Then she suggested, "If you don't like it, then get a divorce. I never wanted my son to marry a woman like you anyway." At those words, my husband began to panic.
Hey, Mom! Why would you say that? That's not for you to decide! I don't want to get divorced!
I, however, was happy to accept my mother-in-law's solution. "Oh, you want us to get divorced? Is that so? Oh, really?" Shinobu seemed confused by my attitude. Of course! I can't wait to get rid of a terrible daughter-in-law like you! Then you should leave. Right now. My husband answered with,
Please, wait, I'm begging you! I don't want to get divorced!
with tears running down his face. My mother-in-law didn't understand what was going on, so continued further. "What are you saying? Why should Akihiro have to leave? The one who should get out is you! You don't belong here!" Saying things she had no right to say. I remember that there were a few things my husband had begged to keep secret from my mother-in-law. I hadn't said anything because Akihiro asked me to, but I might as well tell you everything. Did you know that Akihiro left his previous job to become a freelance journalist? Of course, his talents were wasted on his previous company. Unfortunately, no. He doesn't have any talents, and his wages are about the same as a part-time university student. My mother-in-law was so shocked she let out a loud, "What?" My husband was holding his head, begging me to stop talking. But I had lost my patience and didn't care one bit about my husband's pride. If anything, The ongoing cost of interviewing people means that he's constantly in the red. In other words, everything is paid for by me, from my wages. We're not working parents. The only one working to feed this family is me. The only reason why he can continue his unfruitful work is because I earn more than average. What? Akihiro, explain yourself!
Please stop! Forgive me!
By the way, I'm not finished. The reason why I said to get out is because this house isn't shared by the both of us. This house is property I received from my parents before I married. And so, it's my private property. Akihiro left his job right after we married, because he must have felt reassured by the fact that there was no rent or mortgage to pay. My confessions didn't stop there, and my mother-in-law's mouth had fallen open. I knew that my husband hadn't said anything because of the image that he wanted to uphold in front of his mother. And that's why she had been thinking he had been the breadwinner and that I was just the supporting act. But I shoved the cold, hard truth in her face, even if it was a bit much. You said once that Akihiro makes enough to support us. Little did you know, I'm the breadwinner of this family. He hasn't been earning any money at all. But we still had to split the housework down the middle, and I had to pay for the babysitter. If anything, I think I deserve a bit more respect. You've got the nerve to be leeching off of me and then going around having an affair. On top of that, you bring your mother into my house. She hasn't even had to pay the rent. You're both out of your minds. You desperately tend to your son, who doesn't earn a thing, and have only complaints for me. It's an unbelievable attitude to take towards the person that pays for your food, clothes, and owns the roof over your head. Naturally, my mother-in-law finally understood the reasons for my anger and said, "I'm sorry, I really didn't know. But Akihiro might become a big hit any day now. So can't you support him for a little longer? I won't tell you to do anything in the house anymore. I'll do everything, okay?" That's okay. To be honest, I don't like how strong your flavoring is. And ever since you canceled my daughter's birthday dinner, she's been saying, "I don't like Grandma," and "I don't want to live with Grandma." And your son's a parasitic, freeloading cheat. Is there any reason why I shouldn't get a divorce? My mother-in-law and my husband both couldn't say anything back to me and stayed silent. Anyway, I'd like you both to get out. I'll gather your belongings tomorrow, so please come to collect them tomorrow evening. Wait! There's no reason to kick us out this late at night.
That's right. I don't mind, but Mom's a senior citizen. You could be a bit kinder.
Oh, shut up. Enough. Get out. So I ended up kicking the both of them out. Of course, I don't plan to give them any money to stay in a hotel. After making them leave, I gathered up all of their things. I went to the town hall and got the divorce papers, and filled out my part straight away. When my husband came, I made him fill out the papers and pushed him and his stuff out of my home. I also demanded compensation for his affair. I knew that he would be unreliable with payments, so I made him sign a contract promising that he would pay the full amount in one installment if he missed 1 month. Even if he wanted to fight back, he didn't even have any money to hire a lawyer. And it seems it was difficult for his mother, too, who was living off of a pension. And so, the unemployed man and his mother, who were both chained down by compensation, were thrown out into the real world. Because of the divorce, I had left Arisa with my own parents for a while. When she finally came home and saw that both her dad and grandma were gone, she was a bit confused to begin with, but was hyper in no time, shouting,
There's so much space to run!
As for me, I'm finally free of the parasites previously known as my husband and mother-in-law, and am enjoying my life. I have a lot of cooperation from the babysitter, my friends, and my parents, and am working hard as a single mother. A busy but peaceful 6 months had passed, when suddenly, my ex-husband's name came up on TV.
Yesterday evening, a man was arrested on suspicion of armed robbery. Akihiro Saito, who has no fixed address and is unemployed, entered the jewelry store under the pretense of being a freelance journalist and threatened staff for valuable items. He fled the scene shortly after. His accomplice is thought to be his mother, Shinobu Saito, who sustained a broken leg and fractures to both arms.
After getting divorced, I had taken back my maiden name, Yamamoto, and had put my house up for lease and was living at another address. We were complete strangers now, so I could watch it with indifference. But it was still embarrassing that the both of them had attempted robbery and had gotten injured in the process. It was too pathetic I could cry. I won't though. You reap what you sow. At the moment, I'm not thinking about remarrying or finding a new love. I want to enjoy the new happiness that I finally gotten hold of.